Welcome back, Hopeful Tribe. Did you know that teens of authoritative parents are half as likely to get into car crashes than other teens?
Yeah, I did know that, just learned that. And that's why we're doing this video on the four main types of parenting.
Yeah. And you know what I noticed? Our friends at Psych to Go had already done a video about the four main types of parenting. So we're going to check that out with you.
Have you ever thought about how parent? According to child psychologists, there are two aspects of parenting that can influence child development, emotion, and behavior: control and warmth. The control aspect describes how parents react to their children and which methods they use to parent. The warmth aspect is how much affection parents give their children. Learning about the different combinations of high or low control or warmth of these parenting styles could benefit current and future parents and their children. With that said, let's get into the four different parenting styles. Number 1, authoritative parenting. Authoritative parenting is high on both control and warmth. These parents set strict rules and consequences, but they also make sure not to ignore their child's feelings. They are warm, nurturing, and encouraging, and willing to listen to their children and consider their point of view, but they also make it clear that adults are in charge here. With this approach, they have control over their children, but not in an overbearing way. This parenting style has been considered the best because it's a perfect balance of rules and affection. Children that were raised by authoritative parents are usually happy, confident, respectful, and successful. They rarely show signs of problematic behavior such as addiction, alcoholism, or problems with the law, because the control their parents had over them ensured to teach them good behavior. And since they received so much love growing up, they can love and fulfill themselves and have stable and secure relationships with others.
So that was the authoritative parenting style. Did you have any comments on that?
I did actually. I liked the explanation. Some of the wording, though, was a little bit different than I would expect. So, this idea of control, I think I would like the wording better if it said something like accountability, you know? Um, in some research that I conducted, I found exactly to support motivation for growth, you needed equal parts of warmth, which was called belonging in the study that I did, and this idea of you know supporting their autonomy, but also supporting accountability in that. Um, so I think I quibble a little bit with the words, and even with the idea. I agree with all the results of authoritative parenting that these our friends came up with. Um, However, these ideas of like knowing that the parent's in control, I feel like that word has sort of a punitive connotation.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and in authoritative parenting, it's more like they know that their parents are going to support them. And support can look a lot of ways, right? It can mean they're going to keep you from doing things that are going to hurt you, right? Um, and the idea of the consequences too. I just really like the idea of high expectations. These parents have high expectations rather than this idea of strict rules and consequences, because it smacks too much or comes too close to authoritarian to me. But I really agreed with everything they said. The way that kids who grow up with this style are more confident and yeah, less apt to, well, you expressed that one way risk of getting into car accidents. I mean, it sounds like they are not subject to a lot of other risk factors if they're raised in this style as well.
Mm-hmm.
What about you? What do you think about it?
I feel most connected to authoritative parenting, even though I get what you're saying about the wording. I think control can be a problematic word, though the original studies were written a long time ago when control had a different meaning, I think.
Maybe.
Control in this context to me means it's clear that the adults are in charge. So I don't have a problem with it in that context. That's how I read it. Like, it's really clear there are adults in the mix who know what to do in case of an emergency, who have good guidance when it comes to safety, you know. Um, Back in the day, right? In ancient times, they wouldn't tell kids to not touch the fire. They just let them do it, once, twice, three times, however long it took for them to get it, right? And I don't think it's necessary to make kids experience pain to keep them safe. I think that you could just give good guidance and be trustworthy to the kids in that way so that they're more likely to trust your guidance as you go forward, you know?
Yeah, that's really interesting. The way that you worded it, and the way your description of control, I totally understand and totally agree with that. The part about knowing that the adults are in control, though, still, I just quibble with the word. Like, that you have adults that you can count on and who are going to make sure that you're safe and that you're not on your own to accomplish all of these things. But yeah, I guess I'm just basing it on like that idea of like, the adults being in charge. It just yeah, the words,
Yeah.
it's just wording. It's just a wording thing. But I definitely agree with that point behind it. The kid shouldn't feel like it's all on them to figure things out. Touch
Yeah.
the fire 12 times. No, they should be able to have adults to at least warn them. If they do choose to keep on touching that fire, I don't know what's going to go on, but at least the adult warn them like that's hot.
Hey, some people need more experiential learning than others.
Absolutely. But I get what you're saying. We should be the parent in an authoritative style should be the guardrail, at least to let the kid know here are the dangers of that. Yeah.
And I 100% believe in egalitarian parenting. I feel like egalitarian parenting is sort of a sub style within authoritative parenting, and that's how I would describe how I parented my children. So, I never really thought of myself as in control of my children. In fact, I used to get into it with strangers in public places when they would tell me to control my children. I was like, I don't control these people.
Yeah, absolutely. In our 3 questions video, I talked about this idea of collaborating with the kids you're with, right? Kind
Yeah.
of giving them a say. What's your opinion? Yeah. So I think, I'm scribbling with the words, and that's interesting that you're saying it's because I've heard you speak about the way you raised your kids, and it sounded totally like collaborative in my mind. What do we want to do? Even what did they want to do with their education? What did they want to learn? So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and they also knew I was the go-to in an emergency.
Yeah.
If something bad happened, they'd be looking at me.
Yeah, like, what do we do?
What are we doing? The other part of authoritative parenting that I wanted to comment on is the whole likelihood that people raised in this way will have secure and stable relationships.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I think that's a really important selling point for authoritative parenting styles, is that natural consequence of creating people who are more capable of having stable and secure relationships. So that, to me, makes it worthwhile, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm so glad you pointed that out because of our mission and looking at relationships in this way and looking at the parent-child relationship. Children's lives many times follow the course of what they learned, whether they learned from the bad examples or the good examples, the positive examples or the negative examples. But if one parents in a way that creates a good relationship with their child, that child is more apt to have good relationships with others going forward. So I'm so glad you pointed out that point.
So, how I was talking about people who are raised by authoritative parents are more likely to have secure and stable relationships. Don't feel discouraged if you didn't have authoritative parents, because you can still heal those wounds that can occur from other kinds of parenting and have a secure and stable relationship later.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that I'm glad you said that too, because that's the point that I was making with sometimes people learn by a negative example. They learn like, I don't want to do that. So you may even if you did have authoritarian parents have decided, oh, I'm going to raise my kids and have a relationship that's more authoritative. So yeah, it's not all doom.
Right.